Welcome, everyone. If we could start the meeting with a moment of silence for prayer or reflection. Thank you.
First up, I believe we have a point of privilege.
Your Worship, members of Council, I actually have 2 points of privilege, if I may. The first point of privilege, I think this Council, on behalf of this Council, I want to make very, very special mention of our late friend, Len Mitzel. Len passed away on the weekend, and I know it's in the paper today, so we're free to talk about it. This man was, he had rural roots that were so firmly established in the ground that he helped, pardon me, he helped everything around him grow from those roots. And everything you saw Len do as an advocate of a rural municipality flourished in that way, just like a tree does, because its roots were so strong in rural Alberta. I remember one time when Len first was appointed or elected as a provincial MLA, he was sort of scouting around for things he'd be interested in, and that's when the rural development strategy was just taking hold. And he went to talk to the minister, and he said, well, you know, I'm from rural Alberta, I'm really interested in that. And the minister said to him, well, you know, how many in your community? He said 36. And the minister said, 3,600? No, 36. And that's what Len was like. It didn't matter whether it was 36, 3,600, or 36 million. He was their advocate. He was a wonderful member of the provincial government for many years, and he did amazing things for his region and our community. And he didn't quit then. When he was no longer in government, he was so incredibly involved in the region and in our community. And he did a lot of things for the province through organizations like Palliser Economic Partnership and trade corridors and every initiative that would stimulate the economy and the prosperity in order to make this a thriving region and in turn a thriving province. And he was a friend to most of us and loved by all. And I, on behalf of this council, pay tribute to the late Len Mitzel and pass on our heartfelt condolences to his family.
Thank you.
Now, I feel silly about the next one because I don't mean to minimize comments on one or the other. I'd like to also make the community aware of Raising the Curtain. Raising the Curtain is a celebration of diversity and inclusion, and it goes throughout this week. It started yesterday with a women's only swim and a youth and adult pride skate. Today there are activities in Elm Street School, Box City, construction, I'll go back to that. There was a smudging workshop, a drumming circle, and tonight a soccer game with Samus Immigration soccer team and the Medicine Hat Police, so that'll be really fun. Tomorrow will be the Mawassan Tour and an event called Teddy Bears and Tea, where children 7 years and younger can bring their teddy bear and have an Old English tea. And that event is fully subscribed, as well as the Women's Only Swim today, which I thought was really worthy of note. Without passing on details, a lot of women and their children were there, and there was certainly one family who had a large family with several children who went, and only one of those children had ever been in a pool before in their life. So they were extremely excited to be able to swim in the feel of the water and what it was like. And so this is just a wonderful event. And back to construction, I was over at the Leisure Centre this morning, and the teams were all there with their cans, and I left about 10:30, so I didn't get to see the final products. But the judging is tomorrow night. I'd encourage you to all go over and look. Like, this isn't just a few cans. These are major structures. And it is also open all week. So when you're there with Leisure Centre with your families, please stop by and see it. And take advantage of some of the Raising the Curtain events. Really proud of the committee who's put this together, a true community celebration. So thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
So moving on to adoption of the agenda.
Any additions? Right, seeing none, we'll adopt the agenda.
Next, we have adoption of the minutes from our March 6th regular meeting on page 3.
Any errors, omissions? Okay, seeing none, we'll accept the minutes.
And moving along to our presentation tonight, Jay Sanderson, who's the Executive Director of the Destination Marketing Organization, is here to speak about the 2016 year-end report, item 5.1, page 11 of your packets.
Welcome, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. Good evening. This is going to work just fine. So greetings to Mayor and Council, to community members, neighbors, and friends. On behalf of our industry-led board and our team, we are pleased to present this, our 2016 annual report to the city. Perfect. I'll get the hang of it yet. This is not new information for any of you, but I want to emphasize again that as an organization, our mission is that we are an industry-led, not-for-profit, that exists to strengthen Medicine Hat's tourism profile through destination awareness. And this report summarizes some of the high points and the gathering of detail and information from 2016, which is the second year that we have had the particular honor and opportunity to deliver on Tourism Medicine Hat for the community. But first, a couple of weeks ago, we hosted Rogers Hometown Hockey. And if you had the opportunity to watch any of the footage on television, or perhaps view any of the videos that were available online, you may have recalled, you may have noticed, and like me, you might have been very excited to see in their clips some beautiful panoramic flyover footage of the River Valley, of the FLC, of Medelta. There was some remarkable shots. And the reason that I want to point that out is that, one more click, that footage was ours. And it happened in I think, an remarkable way that speaks to what we're doing. So in essence, what happened is that last summer, we had the opportunity to work in partnership with the Parks Department. We arranged for approximately 38 minutes of drone footage to be shot of our community. We gathered this collateral information, we hosted it, and we began looking for opportunities to use the material. A couple of months later, we get a phone call from Rogers back east, and they say, "We're coming into Medicine Hat. Do you have any pictures?" Yes. We showed them our picture gallery of close to 1,000 photographs. They said, "Some of these are quite nice. We can use one or two. Do you have any video, though?" And we said, "Absolutely, 38 minutes of video. How would you like to view it?" And so we gave them this collateral that we had in partnership created and funded prior without knowing exactly how we would implement. But we did that because we recognized the value of video in telling the story of who we are as a community. And we recognize that our role is not simply to do something when we see an immediate return, but do something that we can build on to promote. And I would click back a couple of slides for you and show you again that mission. And that is to build, promote, and support our community from a destination awareness standpoint. Thank you very much. Distribution is up. The Experience Guide, which is our annual publication, we use it as a lure, an awareness, and a consideration piece. We circulate that throughout Western Canada and some northern states. We are very excited to, in 2017, be planning to print more. So in an era when some print material might be decreasing in quantity, we're driving forward. And the reason we're doing that is our data is showing us that it is being read, it is being utilized, and more people are asking for it. And so what we're able to show with the 2016 data, so it's 3 provinces and 1 U.S. state, the red state is Montana. Those are the number of distribution points that we have for our guide. So not individual magazines, but these are visitor centers, these are side of the highway hotels, these are places where we can put a box of magazines and put them on display over the course of the entire summer season. And we increased by 60% the number of the locations throughout Western Canada where our guides could be distributed, both in Alberta and in BC. We increased the number of chambers of commerce in Montana that would take our guides. And this is important for us because we see leisure travel being up, and this all ties together from that awareness development and driving from an awareness standpoint, helping people enter into that consideration phase of what we offer as a community. We had the opportunity to celebrate the recognition of Janet Smith. And she was recognized as the, let me get this right, because I'd hate to get it wrong on her behalf, the travel counselor, best in class for all of Alberta. She was recognized in October of last year. So of the 80 or more visitor centers that are accredited throughout the province, there's an opportunity in a nomination process throughout all of them. And we were very fortunate, quite proud rather, to have one of our team members, more than one was nominated, but one of our team members was recognized as the travel counselor best in class for the province. It's a remarkable story, and it further supports the enjoyment and the satisfaction the team has, and how relaxed that makes me. Right? We'll hold on this slide for one more moment. Between both VICs, or Visitor Information Centers, in 2016, we saw just over 50,000 visitors. Now, that is the Medicine Hat Visitor Information Center that we have by the teepee on the highway. And we also rolled in 2016, we rolled in the contract that we hold with the Ministry of Culture and Tourism for the Walsh, Alberta Visitor Center. That's a seasonal visitor center that opens in May and closes in September. And we secured a multi-year contract last year with the province as an opportunity to increase our overall budget, some of our funding, but in a great way to increase our strategic capacity to allow us to speak now to 50,000 visitors. And some of the things that really does that for us is in regards to the exit survey data that we get now from a third party. The Ministry of Culture and Tourism surveys people who visit visitor centers as they leave. It's primarily online. It is primarily an opportunity for those folks to leave some comments. 38% of the people who leave the Walsh Alberta Visitor Center inform through the survey that they are now planning to visit Medicine Hat. That is a very exciting number, and it speaks, for me, it speaks to the fact that we have remarkable travel counselors who honestly care and are passionate about not simply relaying information, but in making a connection and providing a heartfelt referral to these travelers when they're traveling through. And we already know, data tells us that folks, a significant number of folks who travel today do not have a set locked-in itinerary. They're open-ended and they're freewheeling to some degree. And so when we have the opportunity to see them at Walsh, to see them again in Medicine Hat, and see fully more than 1/3 of the folks that we engage with then plan to spend time in Medicine Hat, very exciting for us. The photograph of the Stampede we use because, again, for the second year in a row in 2016, our busiest week at the visitor centers is Stampede Week. And there is very clearly a connection there. Thank you. That is the rear end of one of, last year, 2 mountain bikes. We recognize that one of the significant unique features or propositions that we offer both the local community and visitors is the 115 now kilometers of trails throughout our community. It's clearly articulated in our brand promise of who we are as a community. It's that outdoor experience. It's the extension of the 330 days of sunshine and what that means to locals and to visitors. And so to further emphasize that, we bought 2 higher-end mountain bikes. We parked them just inside the front entrance of the visitor center. If you've been by over the course of the year and not see them, that's okay, because we loan them out for free. We have helmets and maps and duffel bags and water bottles, and on average, once a day, every bicycle went out. Folks traveling can sign out the bike, they sign a very quick online waiver, and off they go. And we help them by saying, if you ride in this direction, you'll follow the coulee, and it's beautiful, and you won't hit a hill. If you ride in this direction, you'll see the teepee, hold on, and then a few kilometers later, you'll see Saratoga Trail, and then you'll be right downtown. And we got great feedback from some of the downtown merchants, some of the restaurants and some of the coffee shops would message from time to time and say, hey, your bikes are parked out front. What are you guys doing downtown? All the travel counselors are up at the visitor center, but we loan the bikes out and they ride down. It's something else that we can do to reaffirm the trail system and our brand promise. It's something that's very unique in Western Canada for visitor centers, and it allows us another way to drive intentional visitation to the downtown until we have a boutique hotel down there. We saw growth in the bicycle usage to the point where we're adding bicycles in 2017, and we are looking to add locations as well. We attended the Alberta Bikes Conference a little while ago and found out that Melbourne Bike Share Program on average loans out one bike per day, or that each bike gets used once a day. So we were very excited in our first year to know that we're competing with Melbourne in a usage standpoint. We just need 800 bikes like they have. Next slide is very clearly the inside of Imedelta Kiln. This is a little bit larger. This is life scale. This is not to scale if you were to drive by and visit the Canstruction Beehive Kiln that we built this morning in partnership with Medelta and Safeway. This is the real thing. But I put this up because Medelta was, over the course of 2016, the most frequented stakeholder event page on our website. So through 2015, we planned and we built a new web portal, tourismmedicinehat.com. The website has existed for a long time, but at the end of 2015, we rolled out a brand new tool. And we rolled it out because it would allow us to do something that was very important to our delivery on the mandate that we have from you. And that is that we recognize we're based and we're starting from an awareness standpoint. And we recognize that awareness feeds you into consideration. It's tough to consider something you're not aware of, and so the awareness leads to consideration. And the consideration then becomes conversion. And conversion is something that our stakeholders are uniquely positioned to deliver on. Whether it's attendance at Medelta or pottery classes, whether it's coffees downtown or shows at the Canalta Centre, there are a whole host of ways that our tourism stakeholders convert. Our website through 2016 had 166 stakeholder profile pages. Simply put, these are pages that we help the stakeholders build on our database, on our website, that they can manage themselves or we manage for them. It allows them to update what they're doing, when they're doing it, how they're doing it, and why. And so it's an opportunity to drive that conversion from consideration to their websites. We saw 169,000 visits to those 166 pages over the course of 2016. And 79,000 click-throughs. That's the important number to me. 169,000 visits to my website can be in passing. But we recognize, we are told we're sending 79,000 click-throughs where people are on our website and they're clicking through to Medelta, they're clicking through to the Mavericks, they're clicking through to restaurants and hotels. That's important. Of those click-throughs, 21,900 were actually click-to-call. So if you pull out your phone and you search one of these pages, there's a little button on the bottom side, no different than what Google offers now. You can click to call and it jumps directly to your mobile phone, and now you're dialing that stakeholder directly. You're not calling the visitor center, you're calling the stakeholder directly. 21,900 times that button was pushed. And people were using our website that we've built to call our stakeholders. And we believe that is indicative of a particular level of interest that's very encouraging. The tourism industry in and around Medicine Hat has shown a particular level of resiliency through the last economic year and has shown in a number of significant cases growth, which we are excited for and we are encouraging and we're looking forward to seeing where that takes us in 2017. This 2016 report shows us providing a measure of success and support also for two of the particular drivers as a council that you've set forth, the first being economic development and the second being image and profile. the full 19 pages, give or take, of the report that you have in front of you or have had the opportunity to review by PDF in advance speaks to our measured success in all of those areas. And I would welcome any comments or questions that you might have for me. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share.
Thank you very much, Jace. Any, Councillor Pearson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move with gratitude the reception of this report with several comments. Jace, it's really been a pleasure to be associated with the Destination Marketing Board. I guess the other critical thing I would say is you've done some imaginative and innovative kind of things. The bikes are a tremendous kind of program, and it makes a lot of difference, I think, when people can actually enjoy our trail system when they first come here, and that's really good. First of all, just one small criticism. When the drones come back, get another picture of the FLC parking lot. I have never seen it that bare. It's really important to do that. And then one last thing. Can you give us, and this is a direct question, can you give us an idea of who are the partners in this industry-led DMO board? Who are the industries and businesses that make up that board?
I would be happy to rattle through our board of directors and their associations at the obvious risk of missing one or missing a connection. So allow me to count on my fingers as I go. Our board chair has from the beginning and continues to be Mike Harrington of Valhalla Pure Outfitters. Our vice chair is Greg Morrison of the Medicine Hat Mavericks Baseball Club. Our treasurer is Chris Hellman, both of Mr. Lube and of Moxie's, which is important for us because it gives us that, he's a new board member, but he gives us that voice in the restaurant industry. Then we have Kelly Ireland, the marketing director from the Canalta Center. We have Tracy Newlett of Myers Norris Penny, and a new resident of the community. You likely recognize the name because of the home that she converted on the Southeast Hill in the last couple of years. We have Mike Ratcliffe, who is at present the head of visitor services for Alberta Parks out in Cypress Hills, and he also oversees Hidden Valley, which closed this last weekend after a very successful year, and we were very pleased to be able to support their marketing campaigns through a number of initiatives. Yourself, sir. Right. And we have one ex officio board member as well, which is Peter Swain of Alberta Parks, and he oversees Alberta South. He began when we formed our board as the manager for Cypress Hills. He has since moved up, and he oversees now Medicine Hat and Southeast, Southwest around Lethbridge, and then north towards Calgary. There's a line in the sand somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where it is, but he has been ex officio since the beginning as well.
That was not a self-serving question, by the way. And I have to tell you something really important. The kinds of people that you've been able to attract to this board make it very dynamic. And it's a broad representation, and they deserve a lot of the credit for the success that you are leading right now in this industry. And thank you very much, and thank you especially to those board members.
Thank you. Any other, Councillor Dumanowski?
Well, just briefly, Your Worship, we had the pleasure of having Jace come and present at the D&I committee, and obviously it was appropriate that he comes to Council of the Whole and the public who are watching. Jace, you come with so much energy and enthusiasm and excitement for your role, and those are wonderful traits for someone in your position, but it translates into the work you do and your board, the work that your board does, quite frankly. The part I wanted to bring up was, and I mentioned it briefly at the committee levels, you know, you have your print material and you're diverting it or moving it around in the obvious areas. For those who still want the traditional print side, just like I get my printed Medicine Hat News every morning, I prefer that. But there's also the digital platform where we have a generation who are moving to that. And in particular, for me, is the conversion component that you spoke to, and you've talked about this before, and I personally think that has a huge role to play in the future because people are about immediacy and accuracy, and I'm here, or I'm thinking about stopping, or I might, what's here for me, and they put a point of interest in there. And then you talked about the click to call, which I do often when I'm outside the city. So, and I like that because it's immediate, it's quick, and it's not just, it's Google's platform and others, but you're buying into that mandate as well. So you're meeting the print side of the public and the need for that kind of marketing, but you're also doing the digital side, and you're marrying those very nicely. And I think in the end, the ability to take numbers and extrapolate from that is really what it comes down to the shareholders. So the public at large who says, we've got this contract and we're giving Mr. Anderson and his group a lot of money, what are we getting in return? And you can convert those, literally, those numbers back to, and generate numbers that support people, you know, looking and hitting our community and all the different facets that come with it. And I love that you have, again, that diversity from recreational or trail component to coffee shops, which we've talked about before. Mr. Anderson's a coffee connoisseur, to Medelta, Mr. Finkelman's up there. I mean, we have so many places to highlight. So you're doing great work, and there's more to come. So we'll hold you to it, and we'll see you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McIntosh?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Anderson, great presentation. I said this last year when you presented to us. You were the right man for the job. You continue to impress me, and the team of people that have stepped up in the community to make this work, extremely appreciated. My question is this. You mentioned your ambassadors that are working in the travel booths. What about the individuals working at 16 gas stations along the highway? And as we have people coming through town, the common concern from people in the tourist industry is those individuals, when asked what's there to do in Medicine Hat, they say nothing. So is there an educational component that you guys are working on to help with that piece? Thanks.
There is absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to share. We are, like I'd said before, looking to increase the print run of our experience guide, because one of the things we have found is that it visually and from a storytelling nature tells a compelling story for who we are as a community and what we offer. Our intent in 2017 is to recognize the demand and growth we've seen in other communities and start to distribute that guide even more frequently in Medicine Hat. Now, if that ultimately ends up being a door-to-door drop, my boys and I will absolutely throw a shoulder bag over of magazines, and we'll take those around community by community. That's one thing we're looking to do to increase and to recognize that from a data standpoint, Southeast Alberta actually sees more visitors, and this data might be 2 years old now, but we see more visitors than other parts of the province wherein people don't feel they're tourists. They're visiting friends and family. And so from a percentage of market standpoint, we see a large portion of that. And so with that data and with the success that we're seeing in the efforts that we're making, we're recognizing we need to work deeper into telling that story to local residents, because they are in effect our champions, and they are our travel counselors for those family and friends that are visiting that don't feel that they're tourists as such. In addition to that, one of the things that we had just launched this week was an email out to a significant portion of our stakeholders whereby, and we've talked about some things like this in the past, we are launching in April the very first of our partnered FAM tours, or familiarization tours. And we're partnering with stakeholders to put a couple of buses together. It's the Mercedes buses that Prairie Sprinter provide. And so they're involved, and we're going to pick folks up and drive them around to locations and attractions and give people a first-hand experience. We're going very first to Canalta Centre for Bacon on a Stick. At some point before it's over, we'll be at a coffee shop and we will all drink coffee, or at least watch me drink coffee. They can just watch. The bus driver and I will drink coffee. That can be assured. And so we're doing that in April, and we've just begun the marketing of that this week. And the reason we're doing that is we're taking what we're learning and what we know and now looking to communicate that in a new way to the stakeholders, and in particular those frontline stakeholders. Talking about the 16 gas stations that you referenced, Councillor. We're looking to do that, and we're going to do that throughout the year. I believe that.
Perfect. Thanks. Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I give you my heartfelt thanks, too, for a job well done, and I think the city is more than getting their money's worth with the contract we have with your organization. I'm particularly excited about the fact that you've been able to leverage our contribution with another $152,000 from other stakeholders to help promote the city. And I think being able to hire the people for the Walsh tourist center and have some control over who's there, and the message we're giving there is very important for the city of Medicine Hat, and it looks like you're just not resting on your laurels. You're coming up with new ideas and new programs, and that's what makes it really exciting, and once again, thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Friesen.
Thank you. Well, I'll add my words of praise. Really great report. And I just, when you're looking at measuring success over years, it's really important to see growth. And what you have demonstrated to us in your comments and your report tonight is that you're seeing growth, which is exactly what we want and we all hope for, and we expect and hope, pray it'll happen. But it doesn't happen unless there's a really strong organization with innovative, creative ideas behind it, people who are ready to commit to really try new things, those kinds of initiatives. And so there's no question in my mind that your team has done that, and I'm really impressed. The bike thing, just a suggestion, like get some smaller ones so that you're encouraging families to bike together too. Just a couple of things. In addition to the distribution of your guide, which I can certainly see the increased distribution correlates to your numbers as well, the one you did on food, I found quite compelling because in some ways, people relate to food more than anything else. Well, maybe coffee, depends. But they really relate to food. So perhaps the distribution of that one is almost as important, because they might pick that one up before they do the other guide. I know it really caught my eye, and the first time I saw it, and I went all the way through it with a fine-tooth comb to stuff that I didn't know. I was really compelled by that, and I think it's really an important part of traveling, of everyone's day, and that's just another tool in your toolbox, but I think it is an important one. Two more observations. I was interested to hear, and I see it articulated here, about the accommodation occupancy in Medicine Hat. It's the highest of Drumheller, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, and Red Deer, higher than Red Deer. That's really interesting, and I heard it in another meeting the other day. So that's also evidence that we're going in the right direction. And finally, I want to ask you about campgrounds, and I can't find it now, I lost my place. But it talks in here about people coming through and the what you hear from them. Now I have, but there was a large percentage that were interested in camping accommodations anyway. It doesn't matter what it says exactly. And I found that interesting because, of course, we have a campground in Medicine Hat. We're not the only ones. Do you find that people are saying there are enough camping accommodations? Are there particular needs we should be made aware of when we're looking at potential expansions or, whatever to our campground?
To campgrounds specifically, I believe the data you're looking for, the reference in our report was such that fully 2-to-1, the number of people that we help in the visitor environment between our two visitor centers, when they walk in and they say, you know what, I'm prepared to spend some time in Medicine Hat, can you help me find a hotel? We log that, we track that over the course of the year. When they say, can you help me find a place to camp, a place to park my RV or to put up a tent, we log that. And it was fully 2-to-1, camping versus hotels. That's what we experienced with the 50,000 visitors we saw. That's significant. There is no question that in our peak season, throughout the summer, availability is an important consideration for all forms and all sorts of accommodation in our community. But we recognize as a working team that if there was more capacity from the camping standpoint, and it was structured in such a way that it would support and assist in the enticement and the compelling invitation to travelers, then we would, we believe, have been able to help more of those people book in Medicine Hat as opposed to further down a highway or another if they're looking to camp and we don't have any availability in those moments that did happen. So we believe as a group that more camping would be beneficial for our community, yes. That's the big answer and the succinct one, which I tagged on at the end. But I wanted to also jump back, if I could, really quickly to your food guide comment. We've published that guide 2 years now in a row, and our primary distribution is throughout all of the accommodation networks and a number of stakeholders throughout the community, although we can absolutely look at sending that farther and wider. And you're right, it's because, lo and behold, when people travel, they also like to eat. Going back to when we started this, Travel Alberta informed me at the time to keep my antenna perked for culinary tourism and the culinary scene and environment in the southeast corner of the province, because they recognized some of the things that were happening here were very interesting, and they felt that that could be leveraged as a success story for us. And so we're 2 years in, and we're seeing that success. One of the things that makes our guide compelling, in my humble opinion, is that a number of destinations elsewhere use a publication like that as a revenue-generating tool. It's a pay-to-play. You want your advertisement, you want your restaurant to be in, you need to buy a half page, and you build out the guide that way. You can roll into a community of 100,000, and there might be 8 restaurants in their document. Instead, we approached it strategically, and it's the same way we've approached everything as a team from the very beginning. And that was, let's list every stakeholder in restaurants, in coffee shops. Now, obviously, there's an opportunity for an advertisement to be bought, but that's not the primary driver. And if it was a pure pay-to-play table, we might not even publish it. But we do it because it reaffirms that cultural significance of who we are as a community, and it reaffirms the brand that we're promoting. If that speaks to that comment of yours, Councillor. That's why we do it that way, and that's why I believe it does have the success that it has.
Good, thank you. Any other questions or comments? We do have a motion. Oh, Councillor McIntosh.
I'll second that.
Yeah, we have a motion. Yeah, good, thank you. Did you have something?
Yeah, I do. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So we have a bunch of business people in the community on your board. What is that one tourism idea that we are missing in our community right now? You have the opportunity to hear from a whole lot of people who travel. What is that one opportunity that somebody out there should be investing in to enhance what we're offering?
That's a fantastic question, and one that I was not prepared to answer. So if I lead with Zipline that has coffee mugs built in, is that wrong? Have I overstepped my bounds? What I would say to an answer like that, or a question like that, is that it's important that we have an opportunity from a tourism standpoint to be at the table when those conversations are taking place. Because what we want to do is support and show and describe the brand, that outdoor experience, and that emerging culture of creativity that we have in the community that was developed by data 2.5, 3 years ago that we're acting in. And so we would take that recognition and then apply the lens of who our demographic, and really if demographics are a dying art, the psychographic of who our visitors are. We talk a little bit about it in the report itself. We're looking into that more and more. If we take those two lenses, then I think the opportunity is to look at what, as opposed to a zip line with a coffee mug holder for me, because I'm not selling to me. And if I'm selling to me, it doesn't work. We as a team have to recognize that we're selling to very specific target markets, and it's a demographic and a psychographic. And so to answer the question fully, we would have to go away and spend a little bit of time talking about what we have and what we're hearing that we're missing. And then overlay that with, is that what we're hearing because of who we talk to, or is that what we're hearing because those are the visitors and that's what they're sharing with us? But it's interesting to note, of the psychographic data that we gather and research from third party, primarily through postal codes that are gathered through the visitor centers and other stakeholders, we send it off to Environics and they come back with some information. A couple of things are really cool. One is that fully 9.5% of our visitors, that 50,000 block, the single biggest psychographic body, they travel in family units for family time, and they love national, provincial, and regional parks, national, provincial, and regional historic significance sites. So we talk about looking at what we have with 115 kilometers of trail, with Cypress Hills just a few minutes down the road, giving us a completely otherworldly experience. Red Rock Coulee off to the corner here, Medelta right in the center of the historic Clay District. Those things speak to what those travelers are looking for. And we didn't go into the data looking for that. We went into the data looking for who we have and what are they passionate about. And it was those things that they're passionate about, which really, for us, seems to reaffirm and reconnect and complete some of those wheels, so that not every day I feel like I'm in a hamster wheel.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we do have a motion, if we could vote. And that was unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our public hearing, on page 8, you'll find item 4.1, bylaw 4421, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to close roads in the City of Medicine Hat. This particular area is at the end of Bridge Street. We completed the advertising and received no submissions on this.
So we are required to have a public hearing, and I will ask if anybody would like to come down and speak for or against this bylaw. Please come down and state your name. I will ask a second time if anybody would like to come down and speak for or against this bylaw. Please come down and state your name. And a third and final time, if anybody would like to come down and speak for or against this bylaw, please come down and state your name. All right, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing.
Your worship, at this time, I'd ask that bylaw 4421 be read a second time.
Second?
Any comments? All right, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
I'd ask that bylaw 4421 be read a third time and passed.
Second?
Any questions, comments? All right, if we could vote. And that was unanimous, thank you.
Moving on now to our reports. Our first one's on page 11, item 5.1, Development and Infrastructure Committee meeting of March the 8th, and this report's for information.
So moved.
Second?
We have just received the presentation. Any other questions or comments? All right, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Next report's item 5.2 on page 32. You'll find the Public Services Committee meeting of March the 13th, and this report's for adoption and information.
Your worship, I move the report be adopted and received for information.
I'll second.
Any questions? All right, if we could vote. Oh, Councillor Pearson.
Just to add to the great promotion that Councillor Friesen had for the Raising the Curtain event. 21 events with a schedule listed on the city's website. If you're concerned or wondering about what's there, check the city's website. It's been a great informative kind of addition to our city site. And whatever you do, don't forget to miss the Shine presentation at the Esplanade on Wednesday night at 6:30. This is where we see all of our various cultures in their very best displayed and performing for us.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Next report's on page 41, item 5.3, Administrative Committee meeting of March the 15th. And this is for information.
Move the and I'll second it.
Any comments? Councillor Pearson?
Past councils have been roundly criticized for studying things, bringing in consultants, externals to help us make understanding our problems and develop solutions for problems that might exist. There's a remarkable difference, I think, in the way that our city's administration is dealing with these things today. And the big difference is, I think we all know those problems, those issues that need answers, and we've been bringing in expertise when we need it. You can see it in the oil and gas business with the hiring of people like Brad Mains, but you also see it in the expert panel that we have for exploration and for decisions on oil and gas. And in this particular case, I was really pleased to see that we have two of our own local folks and an outside expert brought in for the study for the issues of the substation MS7. We have somebody from Edmonton and another different experience coming in to help us make some decisions there. And I credit the administration for using outside expertise as well as our own folks for decisions on specific issues where expertise is required. I think that's a very different thing than studying things to death. This is the way we use money very wisely in our city these days.
Thank you. Any other, excuse me, any other comments, questions? right, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Moving along to bylaws for second and third readings. Our first one's on page 45, item 6.1. Bylaw 4427, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to incur indebtedness in the amount of $5,500,000 for the purpose of the 2017 electric distribution building renovation.
Your worship, I move bylaw 4427 be read a second time.
Second.
Any comments? If we could vote. Oh, Councillor Pearson. That's okay.
Of course, I've got a comment. I think this is one of the very best examples of financially fit being put to good use. It's a good way that we've self-examined some efficiencies and ways to reduce our operational budget lines. And so I have a question related to that. Will the renovation of the Briar Park building also see an expanded footprint of the structure? Is it all internal to the building that's currently there? That's the first question. The second question, why are there two paving contracts? Why didn't we just hire the best company to do both?
Not sure the answer.
Through the chair, all the renovations are internal to the building. We will also be optimizing the yard space, and the gas distribution company will retain some of the indoor garage and yard space in the Kipling corridor, because that's not required by NGPR. But we'll be kind of fine-tuning that as we go along with this. The key thing is that we have a very solid business case where we see significant operational savings year over year, and conservatively we'll pay back this $5.5 million within 8 years.
Can you also answer the question, why are there two paving companies?
Looks like one is actually paving gravel, and the other one is actually doing repairs, so it might have been two different types of, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Your worship, I'll move that bylaw 4427 be read a third time and passed.
Second that.
Any comments? All right. That was unanimous, thank you.
Our next bylaw is item 6.2 on page 49. Bylaw 4431, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to incur indebtedness in the amount of $500,000 for the purpose of communication tower remediation.
Your worship, I ask that bylaw 4431 be read a second time.
I'll second that.
Any comments? Councillor Pearson?
Thank you, worship. The question is one of safety, and I know that there are 3 different towers that the city uses for its two-way communication, but when this one tower is being renovated or replaced, what are the safety provisions that are implemented to ensure that communication is flawless, it's consistent, and there won't be any disruptions to all of the special emergency services that we have?
Through the chair to Councillor Pearson, I believe they're able to do this work while keeping everything operational. They go to great lengths to ensure that we don't have downtime in anything that's essential in terms of communication.
Can you explain then why we need this third tower if things could work without it? 3 towers, we're replacing the old one, and there's still communication that's going to happen with the 2 towers. Why do we need the third one?
So through the chair, we're keeping the third tower operational while it is being upgraded. So I believe they're able to do that without disruption. They will switch over to new equipment as they're upgrading equipment on the tower.
Okay, thank you. That explains it. I thought the tower was going to come down and a new one put up.
Any other questions or comments? We could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
I'd ask that bylaw 4431 be read a third time and passed.
I'll second that.
Any comments? If we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Our last bylaw is item 6.3 on page 53, bylaw 4432, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to incur indebtedness in the amount of $500,000 for the purpose of Animal Pound and Rescue Centre building rehabilitation.
Your Worship, I'd ask that bylaw 4432 be read a second time.
I'll second that.
Any comments? Councillor Friesen?
I have a question of information which is appropriate at first reading through the chair to...
This is second.
Oh, this is second reading. Okay, well, it's appropriate at second reading too. I should have caught it at first. Through the chair to the CAO, when we purchased this building for the purpose of Animal Pound and Rescue, it was an opportunity that presented itself that we needed a quick turnaround, and it was definitely the right decision. We knew at that time there would probably be some repair, or I should say maybe maintenance is a better word, I'm not sure, repair and maintenance, but some things that the building would need done, and we would be able to find out more about that after we moved in because it was such a quick turnaround. So what we have here today represents that anticipated expenditure. And I'm just wondering, it's $500,000, and the recommendation is that it be paid by debenture. And so my question is, if you could give us a little more information on why. And the reason I ask is because a few years ago, we did have some money, significantly more than this, put aside in the event that the SPCA, who at the time had the contract for this service, was building a new building. And that money then was not utilized out of Community Capital Reserve and still exists within. So my question is, why would you choose debenture as opposed to taking it out of Community Capital Reserve?
Through the chair to Councillor Friesen, that's correct. It's because facilities, physical facilities is something we can borrow against, and we have the security of the actual building. The investments we're doing in the building are actually more than maintenance, they're upgrades to the building, and so we're adding value to a facility which is thereby securing the debt that we're taking on. We sometimes have expenditures where we don't have a way of financing it through debt, and facilities is something very concrete. We like to kind of channel the debt into those areas where we can use facilities as security.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson?
Thank you, Worship. I deeply appreciate the little notes at the bottom of all our bylaws that involve money and borrowing and debentures. That tells us our status. And it's just really a little bit alarming to me, I guess. If all of our bylaws were borrowed, this bylaw brings our total debt to more than $500 million, or 83.33% of our total debt limit. Remember that our debt capacity is based on 0.35 times our 2016 unaudited revenue. But today, there's no revenue from oil and gas. And to the CAO, has this loss of revenue had this kind of dramatic impact on our debt limitations? And another just hypothetical question, at what level do we stop our spending and borrowing?
Through the chair to Councillor Pearson, the majority of our borrowing by far is in the utility sector, where we are aiming to keep a sort of 60 to 40 debt to equity ratio. Due to our massive infrastructure replacement and upgrading, we will go a little bit over that, maybe closer to 70 to 30 in environmental utilities in particular, kind of in our longer term horizon here with some of the investments we have to make. But basically the borrowing in those utilities is, it's a self-sustaining utility, and so the rates are paying back what they're supposed to pay back, and it's the way we are managing getting through the infrastructure replacement backlog that we have to get through. On the municipal side, we are not increasing our overall borrowing, as you saw in the last budget. So in fact, we've capped that, and we've said we're not going to spend more capital than what we have available to, staying at the same level of overall borrowing, and in fact bringing that down over time.
Thank you. And yet at the same time, I know the 30/70 sounds like it's, if it was 70%, I could buy it. But the concern I have is that this is like 83% of our total debt capacity. And my question is specifically about, has that been impacted by the fact we have no revenue coming in from oil and gas? Has that been the biggest drawback to that debt capacity or that debt limit?
So
through
the debt limit has gone down because it's 2 times our revenue, but we still are making revenue from the oil and gas and electricity industry, and that still, net revenue still goes towards our debt capacity. But yes, you're right, it has lowered, and then again, of course, our servicing costs can only be 35% of our total revenue as well. So as the revenue goes down, then our servicing costs, what we can actually borrow, goes down as well. So you are correct.
But then my big question, and this is probably most directly directed to you, Your Worship, at what point do we draw a line and say we have to limit what we're spending?
But the thing is that 205 million of that is unborrowed. And so then that is unlikely to be borrowed, frankly. And the massive increase in borrowing has been done on the utility side, $66 million for the new generator, which actually is probably only going to be $56 million going forward. And it is totally self-sustaining debt because it's on the utility side. And as the CEO correctly mentioned, we have capped the municipal debt, and actually it's going down over the next 2 budget periods. So it's tale of 2 cities, I guess.
It's still scary to
Yeah.
see written down at the bottom of these bylaws.
It is, and it has gone up. The percentages have gone up in the last few years due to the revenue decreases. Oh, sorry, Councillor McIntosh.
Thanks, Your Worship. Question for the CAO. When this building was purchased, there was an understanding that there was going to need to be money spent. It was not anywhere near the $500,000 that we're looking at tonight. Could you give us a breakdown of where that $500,000 is going to go?
Sure, through the chair to Councillor McIntosh. I don't believe we actually had an estimate of how much. We had a contractual obligation to deliver them a building to a certain standard that will meet the needs for a pound facility. The biggest portion of the 500,000 is in the air exchange system, the heating ventilation system, because when you have a building occupied by animals and sick animals and sometimes quarantined animals, you have fairly high levels of air exchange required in order to maintain that facility at the standards that are expected. So that's the biggest portion of the 500,000. We have some interim measures in there right now that are frankly inadequate and a little slipshod, and we need to bring this facility up to standard. It's still significantly less than we would have spent outfitting and building from scratch, because we did look at that as well, and that was going to cost us at least $2 million to outfit an existing building from scratch so that it would meet the standards.
Thanks, Councillor Dumanowski.
Well, just going back to the debt limit, the borrowing, and I think, Councillor Pearson, you bring up good points, and I know you're not bringing this up to create unnecessary fear in our community. I mean, it's here in a very transparent way. It's been like this, always has been, and always will be. The point I wanted to reference is the wording where the mayor appropriately pointed out that if we were to exercise all borrowing, that's a pretty significant change in number, $200-some million more. And through the CAO, if you can clarify for me, and I recall, I'm not sure if we still have it on the books, we had a borrowing bylaw in case we needed to do an acquisition very quickly. In many cases, when we are in the environment of making acquisitions, the turnaround time after some interest is garnered has to be quite quick. And so we had a borrowing bylaw, I can't recall the total, a pretty significant number, ready just in case we needed to exercise it. And so I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that is part of that unborrowed capacity, is it not? Or is it somewhere else? Because I remember it was a pretty significant amount of
Through
money.
the chair to Councillor Dumanowski, I believe that borrowing bylaw has expired. It was $100 million.
Yeah.
And I think it expired in the fall. So that's actually off of
So that
this
is off.
calculation.
So, I mean, still, the point is made that if we were to draw it, so I think what we have to make the distinction on is that what percentage of it is 49% of it is exercised, and if we were to exercise the additional amount, it would jump significantly, but that's if we had to. And again, every election, it comes up, and I'm sure it will again this fall, whoever's running, is the borrowing capacity, our debt limit, and we know that in the 85-90% range or higher is on the utility side, it's self-supporting debt. So we that's not to take away from what's here, but I think we need to make that distinction because it's a distinction that most municipalities aren't in the position of having to make, especially ones like us, but we have to and need to. And it positions us very differently than what we see on paper here.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? We could vote. And that was unanimous. Thank you.
I lost track of where we were through the clerk. Are we 4432? So, Your Worship, as I said, bylaw 4432 be read a third time and passed.
I'll second that.
Any comments? Okay, if we could vote. And that was unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, new bylaws for first reading, page 57, item 7.1, bylaw 4430, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to close roads in the City of Medicine Hat, and this is a portion of the south boundary roadway allowance.
Your Worship, I seek leave of council to introduce bylaw 4430 and ask that it be read a first time.
Second?
If we could vote. And that was unanimous. Thank you. So we have no more business before this council, so we are adjourned.